So welcome back to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of November 22nd, 2022. We will be resuming this afternoon with public meeting item number 6, and then that will conclude our public meeting agenda, and we will move to our public hearing agenda for new applications for work on designated properties. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the rest of the agenda items.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. We'll begin with public meeting item number 6, LPC 23-00428. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the borough of Brooklyn, block 1209, lot 36, 1450 Pacific Street in the Crown Heights North Historic District. An Italianate neo-Grec style freestanding house designed by G. Damon and built circa 1882. The application is to construct a rooftop addition and a roof deck at the garage, modify a masonry opening, and install a fence. This was last presented at the public hearing of October 25th, 2022, and no action was taken at that time. The staff will present the revisions to the proposal.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Michelle Crarin, Preservation staff. This application is for work at 1450 Pacific Street, which was last presented at the public hearing of October 25th, 2022. No action was taken at that time. The photo on the left shows the existing conditions, and the 1940s tax photo is on the right. The scope of work before the commission includes the alteration of the roof and construction of a rooftop addition, installing a railing on top of the garage to create a roof deck, modifying an opening to install a door at the first floor of the front facade, and installing a fence and gate in front of the garage. Here you can see the house's position on the south side of Pacific Street, close to the intersection of Kingston Avenue. This slide shows streetscape views of the house from nearby sidewalks. And here are some views of the rear of the house, which is not visible from any public thoroughfares. At the public hearing, the commissioners present expressed a consensus of support for the alterations and addition at the roof, but felt that the design of the addition should be better integrated into the building as a whole. Additionally, some commissioners noted that if a roof deck were to be constructed at the addition, the railing at the roof should not be visible from public thoroughfares, and other commissioners did not support a roof deck at the addition. With regard to the work at the garage, some commissioners expressed support for the modification of an opening at the house to provide access to the roof of the garage, as well as the railings at the roof of the garage and the gate in front of it. But some commissioners felt that the raising of the side parapets of the garage was not appropriate. The applicants have returned today with a revised proposal. In this slide, you can see that the railing at the roof of the addition has been pushed back so that it will not be in the line of sight as seen in front of the house on Pacific Street. In addition, the height of the side parapets of the garage will be maintained at their current historic height. On the left is the design as previously presented, and on the right is the current proposal. The changes most evident at this facade are detailed changes at the addition. This slide shows existing conditions at the roof, noting the modern skylight and that no historic roofing material remains. On the left is you can see the original proposal, and on the right, the existing proposal at the east facade. Here you can see the changes to the addition with the railing pushed back and windows and architectural details that have been added at the addition. Here you can see the revised proposal at the rear facade. Details have been added and the sizes of the window assemblies have been reduced. And here is the revised design at the west facade. Details match the other facades, and a small window has been changed to a double hung window. This also shows the retention of the side parapet height at the garage. In addition, the mock-up was revised to show the change to the railing at the roof. Here's the view looking south from Kingston Avenue. And this is the view closer to the intersection with Pacific Street. And on the north side of Pacific Street, just west of Kingston Avenue. And lastly, here is the view of the front facade showing that the railing will no longer be visible from this view. These two slides show the revised renderings of the addition and work at the garage, again, previously proposed on the left and existing on the right. And then here are some details of the proposed door to be installed at the front facade in the enlarged opening to remind the commissioners. And an additional rendering. The applicant is here and can answer any questions about the revised proposal.
Thank you, Michelle. Commissioners, do we have any questions either for Michelle or for the applicant? All right, I don't see any questions. I'll just note for the record, as you know, the Historic Districts Council did send a letter with respect to commenting on the revised proposal, appreciating the changes to the rooftop addition, but still having concerns about the railing at the deck. Okay, so commissioners, if there are no final questions, either for Michelle or for the applicant, then we'll go ahead and move to our discussion. And I'm going to send you all requests to unmute. So as Michelle stated in the presentation, the last time we saw this, I think most commissioners felt that the addition needed to read more like a dormer and more like part of the architectural style and design of the building, and that the railing associated with that rooftop addition be not visible from the main views. And then most commissioners were fine with the garage, although some did ask that the side walls not be raised, but the railing was okay. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. Commissioner Shamir Barron, I think those were your thoughts last time, and how are you feeling with the changes they've made today?
I think and I'm trying to also understand some of the staff comments, and I'm not, maybe I shouldn't refer to that, but I know that there was some concern about ornamental something, and I'm not sure that I understand what that is, that there's too much being seen. I mean, from my sense right now, looking at the images that we see, they have addressed the concerns. There's considerably less visibility, and it looks more sort of consistent with the building itself on the roof. And I think that what they're showing us for the top of the garage seems all right, despite the fact that the parapet walls have not been brought up, right? But there's just that fence. I think that that's fine. So unless there is something I don't understand here.
Yeah, I guess the staff comments were talking about simplifying the detail at the dormer addition. So I think the applicant was trying to make it relate more to the building, and so it's a question of whether it should have simplified detail or detail that's more related to the building.
Yeah, I actually think that what they're proposing is interesting and does not seem to me to be too much or competing or detracting from what was historically ornamental versus what's newly ornamental. It seems settled in place and does not call too much attention to itself, so I think is appropriate.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and I think Commissioner Chapin, I think you were also sort of in that, following those same comments, suggesting that the addition look more like a dormer and that the railing at the roof be minimized.
Yes, and I think I agree with Commissioner Shamir Barron that while it's a little ornamental, it's not so uncharacteristic. In effect, you can imagine that if previously there had been an addition to the roof, that it might have looked like this. So I think that's okay. I think that the decoration on it is appropriate in this particular case. So I'm fine with it as presented.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Commissioner Halford Smith, are you comfortable with the changes as presented?
Yes, I think the added little bit of ornament on the addition on the roof is not distracting. I think it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, you also were here the last time this was presented and also felt that the dormer should read that the addition should read as a dormer and relate better to the architectural style of the building.
Hold on. Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I'm not muted. Cool. All right. So I agree. I think that it's looking appropriate as presented.
Okay, great. And I think Commissioner Gustafson, you also sort of agreed with the consensus the last time. And how are you feeling this time about?
I'm
changes?
agreeing with the consensus yet again.
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Chen, you were not present here when we presented this the first time, but you've heard the discussion now, and I don't know if you feel comfortable giving.
Yeah, I agree with the consensus. I think that this is an improvement, and I have no problem with the detail in the context on the DOMA. So I agree with everyone else.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Jefferson, you also were not present when this was originally presented to us.
I agree with the consensus.
Okay, all right. So I think we all are in agreement that this has addressed our concerns and can be found appropriate. So Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC 2300428, 1450 Pacific Street in Crown Heights North Historic District, an Italianate neo-Greek style freestanding house designed by G. Damon and built in circa 1882, the application is to construct a rooftop addition and a roof deck at the garage, modify a masonry opening, and install a fence. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Crown Heights North Historic District, and I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate, damage, or conceal any significant historic features of the building, that the rooftop addition will only be visible from oblique vantage points to the east on Pacific Street and the northeast on Kingston Avenue, that the modest size of the addition will allow the building to maintain its scale as a single-family house, that raising the height of the shallow hip roof to accommodate the addition will recall the original geometry of the roof and will not be visible over the primary facade, that the paired and tripartite doubled hung windows at the rear facade of the addition will be in keeping with the fenestration commonly found at dormers and dormer-like additions at buildings of this age. The dark green clapboard siding of the addition will be in keeping with the materials and finishes found elsewhere at the building, that the railings at the roof of the addition will only be visible at a distance from oblique angles. And
that's it.
And that's it. Yep.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Oh, sorry. I think there was a bit more.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I apologize. Yes. Also, that the modification of a window opening at the first floor of the primary facade to create access to the garage deck will only be minimally visible from the public thoroughfare and will not disrupt the building's overall fenestration. The proposed utilitarian metal railing at the roof of the garage will be typical of such installations commonly added to garages over time and will not call undue attention to itself. And that the simple metal fence in front of the garage will align with proposed low fences to be installed at the front yard and will be in keeping with the presence of fences sometimes found in front of driveways at buildings within the historic district.
Great. Thank you for getting those last few ones. Okay, Commissioner Chapin, would you second the motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Oh, he's left. Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
I was 8 in favor and none opposed. The motion passes. I'm sorry, with 7, 8 in favor.
Okay, thank you. So that's approved, and that concludes our public meeting agenda, and we will now move to our public hearing agenda.
All right, and the first item is public hearing item number 1, LPC 22-08844, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, block 1444, lot 59, 3419 83rd Street, Jackson Heights Historic District. This is a neo-Tudor style garden home designed by Pierce L. Keysweater and built in 1928 to 29. And the application is to install a mechanical unit in the front yard.
Hey, commissioners, the applicant has entered the hearing. Lena, if you could just click on your screen where you see the presentation. Great, you now have control of the presentation. You can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Lena Galib. I am the newish tenant at 3419 83rd Street in beautiful historic district of Jackson Heights. I am proposing, in an effort to remove all natural gas usage from our home and to make it energy efficient, we are proposing adding mini split units. Today, we're discussing the addition of a large condenser that we have, after looking at other options, have found the only viable area is in the front of the home. And I would like to take you through that proposal. Sorry, so I I just control it. I can just keep going, or will you say next?
If you click on the screen, you should be able to then advance the slides.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is where we are. Oh, please go. Okay. For context, we have our 1940s tax photo, and as it is today. We moved in last year and have been slowly trying to restore what we can and update what we can. Part of where we are now is redoing the front area garden, and we'll have some more info on that in a bit. Okay, so again, for context, this is our unit or our home. It is attached on both sides. From the back as well, amazingly enough, attached on both sides. Here's our land survey, just trying to show the narrowness of the property. And our floor plan. Okay, so the mini split units that we are discussing do not have any precedent in the neighborhood for the exact unit that we're proposing, but the most comparable unit we have is the single mini split AC unit. So we have these all over the neighborhood. Some are more discreet than others, and they are definitely the wave of the future as far as energy efficiency and using electric power over natural gas. So I do see them popping up a lot more. And this is an example of one of the reasons we love this new neighborhood for us is the amount of greenery and garden type housing. And part of my proposal is to use evergreens to hide any prominent HVAC that might be seen from the street. There have, again, not to my knowledge that I see anybody's doing exactly what I'm proposing, but in the lower left, you'll see the one that I did find. It is there is a small unit behind the shrubbery there, and I think they did a really nice job of making that almost invisible. Okay, so this is the tear sheet of the exact unit. And so you'll see that it's the area in green. And most of the units we see are the single, I'll just call them barrels because that just seems to be the word that comes to mind. Ours is a double stack, and that is because ours is a dual heating and cooling unit. So this is would completely eliminate the boiler and use for and use of any natural gas. And we have already installed one in the back as discreetly as possible. So, excuse me, Commission, do you see where my mouse is pointing? If I use it as an arrow?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we can see that.
Thank you. So we have it aside, right alongside our garage door, and there is still a distance of about 5 to 6 inches. So the garage is still perfectly usable. You'll see it is slightly elevated on these kind of a, I can't think of the word right now, but a riser to keep it right off the ground. But it is constructed to withhold any kind of weather, leaves, dust. So it doesn't need any extra covering unless we want to. But we figured that that was the most unobtrusive place for the unit in the back. Now, because this is a double unit, this unit controls 8 to 9 interior vents all throughout 4 floors of the house. which is why it is a large unit. Okay, so now we come to the proposal. We would like to install another one in the front of the house to now take care of the rooms in the front of the house, which are west facing. So right now we have an area that we've scouted right below this front window. And here are just various shots of that area. And here is a proposed mechanical drawing of the dimensions and where it would sit on the property. And one of the big things I want to impress upon you is that I do not wish this to be an eyesore. I am working very hard to make my home a beautiful and restored and, you know, back to its glory as much as I can, and maybe even more with some more gardening in the front. So my proposal includes a wooden enclosure shown in this blue box that would cover the HVAC unit in the front. Okay, and next, this is a photo illustration that I put together, so please don't mind the exact dimensions and perspective. That is just a kind of a put together Photoshop job. But my design concept would be that that it would be a wooden enclosure with a hinged side for access for any maintenance or any issues on one side. So this would be phase one, would be to cover it with a custom built structure. And then phase two would be to use evergreen plantings all around it to basically camouflage the whole thing from the street. So this is a rendering of what it would look like from above looking down. So we would see the steps here, hopefully a couple seating areas. And we've been working with a landscape designer to try to get our front area looking nice for next season. Okay, and again, so she helped us do these renderings of the proposed location. So it would be behind the wooden enclosure, and then we would use evergreen plantings in front of it for year-round interest. And hopefully it would never be seen by anybody except for maintenance. And here we have a side-by-side of the current front and our proposed design. Oop, I'll just leave that one up.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and we do have some questions. Commissioner Goldblum, please go ahead. Oh, Commissioner Goldblum, did you have a question?
Sorry about that. So you guys own the whole townhouse, right? From cellar to roof.
Yes.
Is there a reason why this can't go on the roof?
Yes, the contractor said that the weight of it and the way that the piping needs to go down, they didn't recommend the roof, as well as it would you can't lay it down on its side, so it would also then be visible from the street, which would add another, we would also have to then deal with an enclosure issue.
Right, okay. How about that little balcony?
That is also not very weight bearing. We were told that a couple planters is all that can take
Wow.
as far as weight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead.
Just a quick one. Are you getting rid of the rainwater leader on your proposed? You've gotten rid of the rainwater leader.
Oh, well, that must have been the landscape designer just choosing to make her drawing look more beautiful. I don't think we can get rid of that. Again, I don't think, yeah, I think we need to drain that area.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good call, though.
Other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance for this, which was Lucy Levine from HDC. So Lucy, I will be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could just please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine, speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. We appreciate this homeowner's attempt to conceal their condensing unit, but feel that the front yard is an inappropriate place to install the unit. The home has a flat roof where the condensing unit could be placed. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Let me see if there are any other signups. There do not appear to be any other hands raised. So I will just note for the record that Queens Community Board 3 recommends approval with the few following stipulations. One being the installation of required permanent planting, evergreen in nature, shall be maintained and reinforced to provide the utmost enclosure from all street views at all times surrounding the split at the front yard. And also all efforts must be provided to enhance fencing surrounding the split unit to support planting and provide an aesthetic enhancing appearance to the front yard without possible eyesore conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've heard some testimony. You did answer the question about the roof, but please, if you'd like to respond to any of the other comments we've heard, please go ahead.
Well, just another note about the roof, which just occurred to me was one of the reasons the contractor was asking to install them on this level was to be close to the actual electrical panel into the basement. Just the struggle of getting all the wires to it, where this would be pretty minimally invasive. This would be one hole in the wall and it would be right into our basement where the electric is. And I don't remember the exact reasons, but they did not recommend the install on the roof for, I think, reasons of access to the proper wiring and weight unit, and then the issue of maintenance, I think, and maybe it was just because it might be difficult for them to get up there, but I think in general, just the easy access, if anything did go wrong, I think is attractive for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess the other consideration is that there would be some visibility at the roof as well, probably. Okay.
Correct. It is, yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, I'm sending you all requests to unmute so that we can close the hearing and move to our discussion. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Sure, thank you. Obviously, it's never desirable to have this kind of unit in front of a house. That said, in this situation, there seems that the alternatives are not really feasible, or would be more undesirable even if they were possible to do the installation. So this is a neighborhood in which the front gardens are traditionally very, there's a lot of bushes and, landscaping that goes on, and very, very typical neighborhood. So be very appropriate. We're getting a lot of feedback from somebody.
So here, I'm gonna, I think that helps. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as I was saying, the kind of thing they're proposing for vegetation and landscaping is very both common in the neighborhood, very appropriate. And I think using an enclosure as well will also help in case it might be seen. And I think finally, the thing that makes me feel most comfortable with this is this kind of thing really is temporary. I mean, it's needed and be there as long as they need it for the purpose. But things might change over time, and it's definitely could be removed at any time. So I think all those factors mean that I think in this particular case that it is appropriate, and I can approve it as presented.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure I've installed these kind of units myself on jobs, and they can definitely go on a roof. They're very light. They don't weigh a lot. It'd probably be easiest if you needed to put it on a little balcony roof. And you could even throw a couple of beams across or stick it on the wall so it wouldn't even rest on the floor. But, and I think that if it were located on the roof towards the center, you wouldn't see it from the front unless you got way back, and you might just see a little bit of it. I have no doubt that this is the least expensive place to put it because of the electrical connections and the other connections. But I think that it's temporary, but only to the extent that the house is temporary. They're going to keep it as long as they can. And this unit, even if it is changed out, even if the technology improves over time, this unit has at least 10, 15 years on it. So I wouldn't consider that to be particularly short term. So I think it's a bad precedent to have it in the front.
Okay. And I think Diana's point was more about not that it wouldn't be there a long time, but that it was reversible and removable at some point.
Got it.
Okay.
No, that's true. That's no doubt.
Okay. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I hear Michael's comment, and I tend to agree with him. But I think in this instance, I will defer to the majority because Diana's comment is also valid that, it's reversible, and since they're putting the screening, so I will defer to the majority, but I hear from both sides.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
Excuse me. She went through so much of an effort to put the screening and the landscaping. Conceptually, I don't think we should have the units in the front yard, the entrance. But in this particular case, I would let it go because of the effort she made in trying to make it handsome and livable and beautiful. So
Okay, thank you.
I could buy this.
Okay, all right. And I think also the evergreen planting will ensure that that there's a good chance that the planting will be there all year to conceal it from view. And that is not unlike our practice in, for example, Douglaston, where we have freestanding houses and allow mechanical units around the front if it's concealed by planting. All right, Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, I think I find it appropriate. However, I do think that the community board's comments about the enclosure and the planting are very, very important. And the applicant has presented to us, that represented to us in the materials that this is what it's going to be like. So we can hold the applicant to that standard. I do want to compliment the applicant. I think her presentation was as good or better than many of the architects that appear before us, including the quality of the materials and the content of the discussion. So I think that's to be commended.
That's great. Thank you. Commissioner Shamir Baran.
I think this is not ideal, but is approvable. Evergreens take a while to come up, and unless you really invest in very mature pieces planting. So I think it could take a bit, And I don't know that the wood enclosure is ideal either. But since there is a plan for its camouflaging and they seem to be willing to really do it the way that they've, they themselves would like to see it, I think it's approvable, not ideal, but approvable.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith?
Oops, sorry. Yes, I agree that it is not ideal, but approvable. I would prefer it to be located somewhere else, but I can imagine that access to the roof in a house like this is very difficult. So this seems to be a reasonable location for this unit, so I can approve it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I think at this point we have a majority who could support it. So Commissioner Chen, would you be willing to join that majority?
Sure, it's reasonable.
Okay, all right, great. So then I think we can move ahead and make a motion. Commissioner Chapin, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Queens, LPC 2208-844, 34-19 83rd Street, Jackson Heights Historic District. A neo-Tudor style garden home designed by Pierce K. Kieswetter and built in 1928 to 29. Application is to install mechanical units in the front yard. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Jackson Heights Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that there is no practical or feasible alternative to installing the unit in front of the primary facade, that the unit will be screened by a new wood fence and plantings, that the proposed wood fence will have a neutral brown painted finish, will not call undue attention to itself, that the penetrations for associated conduits through the facade will require the removal of only a small amount of plain masonry, and that the installation will not detract from the significant architectural features of the building or the landscape.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
Okay, Mark, call the vote.
Sorry, my computer's give me 1 second. Commissioner Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, he's not here. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Jameer Barron.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
No.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
And the next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 23-02794. This is an application for a binding report. It's in the Borough of Queens, block 9682, lot 1, 150-05 Jamaica Avenue, the Rufus King House individual landmark. This is a park space, the site of the Rufus King Mansion and Estate, a colonial style residence built in 1730 to 55, with an addition built in 1806. And the application is to modify paving at the site.
Okay.
Commissioners, oh, sorry.
So I was just going to note before I was going to try to squeeze in before you did that. Just note for the record that Commissioner Chapin is recused on this item. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Abby.
Commissioner Goldblum as well.
Okay, so the applicants have entered the hearing. Jackie, you now have control of the presentation. You can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. And the project team may begin, but please state your name for the record first.
Hey, my name is Jackie Harris, and I will be presenting Parks Project for Rufus King Park Playground. Went too far. The goals, these are the goals for the project, and we will be working on the playground and sports courts within the park. You can see the site here highlighted within Rufus King Park. This is the land use surrounding the park. There's a lot of residential and mixed use and commercial. Rufus King Park has a high level of use, as it's the only park within a 10-minute walking radius. We have looked at the history of the site and understand the importance of the park being the Rufus King estate. You can see that our site here highlighted is quite separated from the manor house. The playground is a modern intervention installed in 1984. And within the area that we'll be working in, there are some areas of sensitivity that we will certainly be paying attention to as we move along. This is the current plan for the park. You can see our area again highlighted here, and the current uses, which include handball, basketball, play areas 2 to 5, 5 to 12, etc. Some site analysis in the courts here to the north. The pavements are aging, and in the playground, it's aging play equipment, safety surface, and pavements as well. Here I've turned the plan so north is to the left. This is our tree inventory. We do have a few poor condition removals and one nuisance tree removal within the playground. This is a view of the playground looking toward the manor house. You can see the yellow building to the back. This shows the aging pavements, aging play equipment. The left is the spray shower, and on the right, basketball and handball courts. And this is the typical path detail that we will pay attention to as we disturb any path in the park. We met with the community and heard their interests and desires for this park, and met with them last week, and we have heard that our design does meet their interests. Here's the existing site plan. And so to the left in the courts, the handball and pavement and wall will be upgraded to remain, but improved. The asphalt in the basketball court will be removed, and everything in the playground, site furnishings, pavements, safety surface will all be removed. So here is our proposed design. Again, in the courts, the handball pavements and wall will be improved, and the basketball court will have new asphalt and new color seal coat. And in the playground, what I want to point out in this image is the path that we have that we're proposing to go along the outer edge of the playground. And what that does is provide access for users in need to get to the upper levels of the play equipment. And it also provides our maintenance teams access to the spray shower when needed. And to eliminate any desire lines, we connected those two paths. And I'll go into the playground in the next couple slides. So again, we'll be removing existing pavements and site furnishings. So here looking more closely at the playground. Again, that access path, which connects to play equipment here, which will be on safety surface on asphalt, play equipment and swings on the right, again on safety surface on asphalt. The spray shower will be on concrete, along with the benches and seating, concrete bench pads, and in between will be asphalt with painted games. So looking at the square footage in the sports court area, we will be reducing the square footage. And in the playground area, it will increase. The actual footprint of the play area shrinks slightly, but adding this path does add a little bit of square footage. So here you can see how the path, the new access path, will engage the play equipment at a higher level. So those in need and all users can get to that those upper decks more quickly. Looking at the fence diagram existing, we have typical chain link fence around the sports courts and pipe rail surrounding the play area. We'll upgrade a few of the chain link fences around the courts, and we will enclose the playground in pipe rail fence, and the proposed fence will match the existing fences on site. Typical site furnishings and standard colors for standard gray for the safety surface. The spray shower will be gray and blue, and the painted games will be on asphalt. We'll have a simple tree palette, which will enhance the existing palette on site. And here is the final image. Again, this is the area we'll be focusing on. You can see the manor house, the manor museum in the background. And here's our design laid over the existing park plan. So we can take any questions that you have now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions, so let's move to public testimony. And if you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I will turn it over to Gregory Collog to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance, and that was from Jeremy Woodoff from VSNY. So Jeremy, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and say your name for public record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jeremy Woodoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. This project is about more than modifying pavement as described on the calendar, but nonetheless, the Victorian Society finds that the work will have essentially no effect on the Rufus King House or on those features of the larger site that were designed to help provide a harmonious setting for the house. Vibration and optical monitoring at the house during construction should be instituted as necessary. However, we comment on this proposal mainly to call the Commission's attention to the appalling level of stewardship at the Rufus King House itself by the Department of Parks. We've recently given similar testimony in regard to Litchfield Villa and the Morris Jumel House, and we will continue to call out this situation at every opportunity. This project would spend $4.5 million on play equipment, paving, and miscellaneous related work, while the adjacent, architecturally significant 18th century house of a founding father, anti-slavery advocate, and framer and signer of the US Constitution, sits forlornly with peeling paint and rotting wood among its visible problems. Advocacy efforts have been insufficient to alter the priorities of those responsible for the city's publicly owned historic houses, notably the Parks Department and Department of Cultural Affairs. The Office of Management and Budget, which seems to have a profound lack of understanding of the needs of the houses and of historic preservation, often stands in the way. And elected officials consistently fail to allocate sufficient capital and expense funds for the houses. The Landmarks Commission's expertise in the benefits and practice of historic preservation is presumably appreciated among its sister city agencies and the administration. The Commission is uniquely positioned to make a difference. We've previously suggested a way that might be done. We continue to urge the Commission to make its voice heard. We ask that you please review the photographs we've provided with our written testimony showing the conditions at the house. I also want to make it clear that these comments in no way reflect on the excellent work of those organizations like the King Manor Association that undertake programming at the houses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. So we will, the Community Board Queens recommended approval via email. We have not received the formal resolution yet. However, they did confirm via email. And that is all we also received 2 written testimonies recommending approval from nearby residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we largely have testimony supporting the changes to the playground. I'd like to turn to the applicant team and ask if you'd like to respond to concerns about the conditions of the historic houses within the parks in general, or make any other final statements about the park design.
We do include vibration monitoring in our project, and the other aspects, we don't have any comment right now.
Okay. All right, commissioners, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and send you all a request to unmute so that we can move to our discussion. Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And this is, as we've heard in testimony, this was a very important individual landmark. So important that it was one of our first designations in 1966. And as is typical of those reports at that time, they were only one page. So this entire designation report is sort of, in terms of significance, is sort of 2 paragraphs and just speaks about the house itself and the architectural style and fabric and the significance related to the King family. So it does not talk about the siting or the landscape around it. We have over the years approved numerous changes to the landscape to allow for the park uses, including playground equipment and artificial turf. And so we'll look at this proposal to replace existing playground equipment and fencing in that way. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. There's not much really going on in this proposal. There's a very limited scope. There's not much change in the landscaping. The footprint of the paving is staying pretty much the same. And it's being improved, and the materials and the finishes they're using are standard fare. And I think much of the time it's very difficult to see the house in conjunction with what's going on in the playground. So I don't have any problem with this. I would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Commissioner Shamir Barron.
I think, I agree that what's being proposed is does not necessarily detract from the context or the house, although I might have wanted to understand what kind of proposal would have sort of contributed to the appreciation of the house and the site. And what might that look like? Both, you know, even on the kind of play form level. And I don't know what that would be, but I think it would have been interesting had that been a consideration. I don't think it detracts, but I also don't think it contributes, and that would have been an interesting thing to see.
Okay.
So it's approvable as presented.
Okay, Commissioner Holford Smith.
Yes, I think this is it's appropriate. I think it's fairly neutral, I think, in relationship to the house. And I appreciate Adi's comment. That would have been interesting. But I think given what they're proposing, I think it is appropriate.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen.
Same here. It's a small section of the park, and it's modest and is approvable.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson.
It's appropriate. However, it lacks conceptual imagination. It lacks just unimaginative, but I can approve it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So I think we all are in support of this application. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you read the motion?
All right, in the matter of LPC 23-02794, 15005 Jamaica Avenue, the Rufus King House, an individual landmark. The application is to modify paving at the site and a little bit more. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will be at a small section of the park, which is not known to have historically featured any significant landscape improvements and will not eliminate or damage any extant significant architectural features of the house or site. That the proposed work will help improve barrier-free access and access for maintenance vehicles, that the area of work features modern pathways and paved play areas, therefore the change in footprint and limited increase of the paving and replacement of play equipment and fencing will remain consistent with the evolution of this section of the park, that the work will be behind and at a considerable distance from the house and is visually separated from it by an expansive landscaping, thereby helping the paving to remain a minor background element in these views. That the paving will be comprised of typical materials and neutral finishes, which will further help it remain a subordinate presence at the site, and that the fencing will be simply designed and in keeping with existing fencing within this section of the park in terms of materials, details, dimensions, finishes, and placement in relation to play areas and pathways.
Thank you. All right. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Accused.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah,
Accused.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved, and we'll move to the next item now.
The next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 22-12216, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1136, lot 46, 538 Carlton Avenue in the Prospect Heights Historic District. This is a Renaissance Revival style attached house designed by George F. Rusin and built circa 1899. The application is to create window openings, construct a bulkhead, and install railings at the roof.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing, but they haven't accepted my promotion. So Olivia, if you could please accept my promotion to panelist. Okay, we'll try a different one. Olivia, is that you?
Hi, this is Stephen. Can you hear me?
Stephen, okay. So I have that Olivia is going to be.
Olivia works in my office. Yeah, she's working on the project with me. I'm the principal architect of the studio, so I'll be presenting.
You'll be presenting. Okay, great.
Olivia, please click on your screen and you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Or Stephen, would you prefer to have?
Yeah, that would be
Stephen's
easier.
presenting.
Thanks.
Sure. Do that. Okay, Stephen, if you could click on your screen, you can advance the slides using your arrow
Great.
key.
Thank you so much. All right. So the project is, as you know, located at 538 Carlton Avenue. And the proposal is to, we're not adding any bulk to the building with the exception of a very small bulkhead at the top of the roof, which is required for stair access by code. This will be it's proposed to be a 4-unit project. And we are keeping and cleaning and maintaining all of the historic elements of the building. We have indicated some of the existing conditions that are not, some areas are not so great condition that we will be repainting and repointing. I will jump to the next 2 or 3 slides show the areas in yellow, which we are proposing to alter. So from the front facade, we have a very small bulkhead, which is angled. And you can see a bit better on, this is a removal elevation. And here, so we have a very small bulkhead, which we have some site photos and a mock-up that was done. As well as 2 windows on this lower portion here to match the windows above. Currently, it was just a very small square opening into a bedroom, which was not meeting code because it was too small for light and air. That one was originally, you can see here, it's just a very small square window. And we're proposing to match the existing windows above and just continue the same language down. And the bulkhead as well, which we've angled and worked with Landmark staff as well as community board to try and shrink this as much as possible so it's not visible from the public thoroughfare. From the rear facade, we have a railing that is needs to be added at a current roof terrace that had no fall protection. So that is over here on this portion, as well as a railing at the roof, which we have set back the railings, which I can show you in the photos and as well as a mock-up for fall protection as well. That's existing versus proposed. So you can see the proposed elements highlighted in this diagram. And moving to the, as well as here, you can see here we have set back this railing. We'd worked with the community board for the railing on Dean Street to push this back as far as possible until it disappeared from the public thoroughfare, as well as pushing these railings back from the perimeter. And we'll show you on some mock-up photos. These were the mock-ups done on the roof level. And from here, so from the corner of Dean and Carlton from across the street, which is the bottom left photo. Thankfully, we have this very high cornice, which blocks all of the low railing and the bulkhead. And again, looking from different views, we get just a small sense of the bulkhead here. We do see it from Carlton's side, but that's not from the public thoroughfare. And looking into the yard, we have the second story level fall protection railing here, which will be a vertical steel bar painted a light color to match the existing brick, and as well as where this is visible highlighted on these images. And the rest are the supplementary plans, but if there's any page anyone would like to see, I can gladly jump to that.
Okay, and then is this P4 view a zoom view, or is it just a cropped view that sort of?
It's cropped. Yeah, it's cropped and zoomed a little bit just to show, where so this is from Carlton looking this way. This is the bulkhead is up against the side of the building because of the location of the stairs.
Okay.
So from Carlton, the bulkhead is visible.
Okay, but this view is sort of cropped in a way that you actually wouldn't see it in real life.
Correct. Yeah. If we did the full view, it would be such a small piece, but we wanted to show, the full extent of what was visible.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any other questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand and I'll turn it over to Gregory Collett to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We had one sign up in advance and I will be getting to them first. The sign up was Gib Vacconi. So Gib, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll and Commissioners. My name is Gib Vacconi. I'm the chair of the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. As I mentioned last week, our organization led the designation of the Prospect Heights Historic District in 2009. We've reviewed this application. We've had a chance to speak with the applicants. We have two recommendations. The first is that no rooftop guardrails that are visible from a public thoroughfare have been approved previously in the historic district. And so we recommend the rails be altered such that they're not visible from a public thoroughfare. We realize that the building code requires a type 1 alteration, as this is, to have a bulkhead and hence fall protection, as the applicants mentioned. But we do not want to set a precedent that will encourage other buildings in the historic district to grow roof decks and the like. We realize the applicant has taken some steps to help bring the rail back from view, and we appreciate that. Some of them happened very late. We haven't really been able to fully take in the mock-ups on site. So again, our recommendation is that they not be visible from a public thoroughfare. Second, we recommend that the rail at the rear terrace be painted black to match the fencing along the street. We think that that will be less intrusive than painting it light. That is our testimony on this application. The other parts of the application are not opposed by us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gib. There do not appear to be any further hands raised. So I will note that Brooklyn Community Board 8 withholds support for the landmarks application pending a modification of the roof railing be receded from the parapet so that it would not be visible from a public thoroughfare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments. They seem mostly about the railing, not the back railing, but the side and front railings.
Yes, yeah. So we did have some back and forth, as Mr. Vacconi had mentioned, and we our client's contractor kind of got the updated railing in late on Friday. So we had to go over the weekend to take the photos. So it has been kind of last minute because of scheduling. So our latest diagram, I don't know if I have control of the presentation anymore.
Click on it, you should. Right, Abby?
Okay, great. Yeah, so the railing that we did move further was this back railing, and as well as the side railing facing Carlton. So from Carlton, only the bulkhead is visible. The railing is no longer visible. From Dean Street, looking at the rear facade, it is visible just because it's always been open and there was never a cornice back here. So it's going to be impossible to, if we're looking here, this top left image, for example, we're always going to see a railing at some point, and we've pushed it back significantly. So as you get further down Dean Street, it does kind of disappear a bit, but we do have to have some sort of fall protection here because it is wide open. So
Like
I
you
do
don't have
feel
a parapet back there.
there's
And
no
so-
parapet, there's no cornice, so it's something is always going to be visible. So we pushed it back, I believe. Yeah, I believe it's around like 8 or 9 feet at this point. So
Okay. And there was a comment about the color of the fence.
oh yeah, that is no problem. We had that is new initially, and a community board had was thinking that this should be light so that it's less obtrusive, but we're okay painting it black. That's totally okay if they feel that's the way to go.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do we have any other questions? All right, it looks like we don't, so I'm gonna send you all request to unmute so we can move to our discussion. All right, and Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And so the proposal before us today is for 2 new window openings at the basement level of the side facade, which would align with the window openings above. A bulkhead set back on the roof with a slope to look like a typical bulkhead. And then railings, which one you will see over the rear facade, one at the top where there is no parapet, and then one at the projecting L, and the applicant is open to the color of the railings. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I think this is a modest, and it has been set back and limited visibility, especially with the thing. So I can deem it appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I can deem it appropriate.
Commissioner Gustafson?
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Okay, Commissioner Shamir Barron?
I am as well. This is appropriate.
Commissioner Holford Smith?
Yes, agreed. Appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I agree. And I also even think that having it visible from the rear is not an issue because you don't normally worry about things, railings visible from the rear. So.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we sort of have a hierarchy of views. So, Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree, it's appropriate.
Okay, so I think we can go ahead and make a motion to approve. Commissioner Chen, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC 22-12216, 538 Carlton Avenue, Prospect Heights Historic District. The application is to create window openings, construct a bulkhead, and install railings at the roof. Noting the building style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Prospect Heights Historic District, I recommend approval, finding that only limited amounts of plain brickwork and a small single light window will be removed to create new window openings at the basement floor of the deep facade, and that the will be salvaged and reused at other locations on the building, that the proposed window openings will retain the same shape and pattern as the existing windows at the upper floors of this facade, that the new windows will match the building's historic windows in terms of configuration, operation, and finish, that the construction of the proposed stair bulkhead and railings will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features of the building, that the stair bulkhead and railings, while visible over the primary facade of the neighboring buildings on Carlton Avenue, will simple utilitarian rooftop accretions, that the proposed bulkhead will be minimally sized with a sloped roof and will be set back from the Dean Street facade, thereby maintaining a minimal profile and massing when viewed from the north. That the stucco finish and neutral color of the bulkhead and the simple detailing and painted finish of the metal rooftop railings will help them recede from view, and that the work will help bring this building into compliance with the building code and will not detract from the special architectural and historic characters of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry, aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's approved. And we'll
Thank you.
move to the next item. Thank you.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 22-12336, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 619, lot 19. 232 West 10th Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a transitional federal Greek revival style row house built in 1832 with later Italianate alterations, and the application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions and excavate the rear yard.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and the staff will be taking you through the presentation. Richard, please unmute yourself, state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Richard Larry, LPC staff. Here is a 3-story row house. Originally, it was 2 stories. You can see on the south side of West 10th Street here. And then a later 3rd story was constructed, including a full height rear L addition. Here you get a tax photo, and it's twin on the other side, which is similarly altered, and then it had a sort of carriage access to go to the backyard at the adjacent building. And as you can see, that's also been altered. Just to give you a sense of the streetscape. And then here is the condition of the rear facade and rear yard, showing the full height of the rear L and an existing 2-story rear addition. And the proposal is primarily threefold. One is that they will be removing this modern rear addition. There's the side yard that they would like to infill and incorporate into the main house proper, and then to rebuild the rear facade, and then excavate the rear yard, and then to add some rooftop additions of a bulkhead and a canopy to provide, and some fence work to provide some stability for some required flue extensions, as well as rooftop railings and rooftop HVAC. Here you can see the bulkhead mock-up and the rooftop railings that they're proposing. The visibility cone you see on the left is really from sort of the western side. Here you can see a very large apartment complex. So as you said, the cone is really from here to here, and then it becomes obscured by the larger building. They initially, after an initial bulkhead was constructed and a visibility analysis was completed, a new bulkhead was constructed with some revisions, which Joe will get into. And here you see, just a note, the work at the front facade is still being worked out with staff for a staff level approval. So it's really just the rooftop work, the rear yard work, rear facade, and the infill of that side yard that we're proposing to discuss today. Just give you a sense of the existing section and the proposed section. You'll note on the revised rear facade, they are proposing 3 levels of metal balconies. We'll come to that with the revised or the proposed rear elevation. And then just as a close-up detail, it's a fairly narrow building, so there are some design constraints. So an overall height of the roof of, just under 8 feet, with an interior ceiling height of a little bit over 7 feet, and a 15-foot setback from the plane of the front facade here. And then here's just a rendering of the proposed rear facade set into the previous image, showing the neighboring property, which was originally the carriage entrance. Again, you have a gap for side yard access, and then so the neighboring row house, and then the large apartment building that you see on the left there. And just to give you context of the drawings and what they're proposing here. And then just with the excavation that they're proposing, currently the portion adjacent to the existing modern rear extension is already lower than the rest of the rear yard, and the idea is to basically just drop this down. And just to give you sort of the existing and proposed front elevation. And then the existing side elevation with the proposed one. The bulkhead is proposed to be sort of a gray slate clad structure. Just give you a sense of just the detail of the rooftop additions that they're proposing. I think that basically will take it there. I will hand it over to the architect, Joe Vance, to answer any questions the commissioners may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so again, the work at the front facade is being reviewed at staff level. So we're looking at this gray slate shingled clad bulkhead and the extension of chimneys, which is, you can see a bit of from the street, and then the removal of a full height L and other additional rear extension, and constructing a new full height rear facade that is not as deep as the existing full height L, and some excavation to drop the grade in the rear yard. So are there questions for either Richard or the architect at this point? Okay, let's move to public testimony, and we may have questions afterwards. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I'll turn it over to Gregory to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a few signups before in advance, so we'll be going through those first. The first signup we received was from Lucy Levine at Historic Districts Council. So Lucy, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine, speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the proposed additional bulk to be appropriate overall, but feels that 2 elements should be reconsidered. First, the lack of hierarchy on the rear facade should be addressed so that it is more in keeping with a single-family home. Second, the applicant should reconsider the proportion of masonry to masonry openings. Finally, we note that the top floor of the rear facade may have significant leaded glass windows. We urge the Commission to consider whether they are protected features. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. And next we'll be going to Anna Markham from Village Preservation. So Anna, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Anna Markham, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation today. The proposal for 232 West 10th Street is emblematic of a pervasive trend of insensitive additions and rear facade renovations to historic row houses throughout the Greenwich Village Historic District. The rooftop addition is far too visible, and the images of the mock-up are not substantial enough to determine its true impact on the structure. The bulkhead is much larger than it would need to be for roof access. It could easily be smaller and less obtrusive. The rear facade renovations are yet another example of gratuitous glass washing and loss of historic architectural integrity. The rear elevation has not only too much glass, but also too much railing. The balconies are inappropriate, and a simpler fenestration pattern with outdoors on the upper floors would be much better. Additionally, the black on the front is not appropriate for the windows and the trim of this 1830s structure. The applicant should consult with LPC staff to determine a more historically appropriate color palette for this project. In light of the recent events at 14 Gay Street, we urge the commissioners to also require extensive demolition notes that show the architect and contractor understand that the removal of all semi-load-bearing stair hall partitions will require shoring and careful sequencing of construction in addition to the general requirements for excavation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. And next we will be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff at VSNY. So Jeremy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could just state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Hello, Jeremy, are you with us?
Yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jeremy Woodoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. The Victorian Society is opposed to this application for a variety of reasons. First, this is a small, very early row house, and the visibility and bulk of the rooftop addition overwhelm it. The rooftop structure must be made non-visible, or at least significantly reduced in size and visibility to be found appropriate. Second, it appears that the proposed rear yard addition will obliterate the one remaining bay of the original rear wall. This original bay should be retained to preserve the historic material and sense of scale of the original house. Third, the proposed black or near black paint color for the front facade's cornice, windows, shutters, and doors, while trendy, we believe is not appropriate to a building of this age and Greek Revival style. The Commission has amassed a great deal of information on appropriate historic paint colors, and any color change on a building of this significance should be period appropriate. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we object to the high level of intervention, structural and otherwise, proposed for this building. Interventions like this in buildings of this age and construction are inherently risky. Excavation of the cellar, which we believe we saw on the drawings, and removal of joists and interior partitions that provide lateral bracing are examples of such work proposed here. We've recently seen the results of such interventions at 44 to 54 9th Avenue and 14 Gay Street. Neither the Landmarks Commission nor the Department of Buildings appears to have the procedures or the staffing in place to adequately monitor such work as it is being undertaken. Until these procedures are developed and staffing is available, we urge the Commission not to approve work of this kind in buildings of this age and type. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeremy. That appears to be all of the hands raised for this item. So I will just note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask now if you'd like to speak and respond to some of the comments that we've heard, or any of the comments.
Sure, and good afternoon, Chair Carroll and commissioners. We do understand the comments about the bulkhead. We did quite a bit of work on this to minimize visibility. Is this a tricky little building? You didn't really see the floor plan, but it tapers. The building is wider in front than it is in back. It's a shallow lot, so once we have the required zoning required rear yard, the building's not very deep front to back. As a result of that, we had to do a winder stair. The stair is not just straight, it curves at the top and the bottom, which makes the bulkhead wider on its face than a simple straight stair would be. If we made a simple straight stair, you simply wouldn't have habitable rooms front and rear. That's how that happened. We have lowered it enough that at the top of the stair landing, it's, I believe, 7'3" or 7'4" headroom, which can't be any lower than that. We've pushed it back far enough that as you walk under the surface of the bulkhead that faces the street, we have exactly the 6'8" headroom required for the stair. So we've really pushed it back as much as we think we can. The pergola, which Richard mentioned, from senior staff comments, we moved that back 2 feet and revised the mock-up. So that sort of took that out of visibility. Regarding the rear, again, this is a function. This rear facade is not very wide. The window openings are 3 feet wide, which I don't think is excessive width for a window. But you do get a great glass to brick ratio because of the narrowness of that rear facade. The leaded glass that was mentioned is only in a single door, I believe, on that top floor. The balconies themselves, the client requested balconies. There is a balcony extent on the top floor, likely the remnants of an old fire escape. And we didn't want these balconies to be big and bulky like you see on developer townhouse buildings. So we did take cues from fire escapes. So the decking is just simple subway grading that eliminated the thickness of a concrete slab. We made the railings, fairly simple and lightweight, and did all that we could to make these feel light and of the feeling of fire escapes, so it wouldn't feel too foreign in the back. The cladding of the bulkhead, I always feel that anything new we add to an historic building should be obvious that it's new and not old. But my personal preference is to make them things that 100 years from now our peers will think are always also worthy of preservation. So I try to stay away from stucco because I just think that feels cheap. And the other common use of zinc, I feel, is just felt too modern for the village. So gray slate, the commission approved on my project at 100 Greenwich Avenue a few years ago, which had far more frontal visibility. So we're proposing that material to give it a little more intimacy and scale and a nice material.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I think what you don't have here is really a good context photo or an aerial photo that shows how built up this block is, but do you want to just describe the context a little bit? You have the building next to you, which goes full lot and then wraps behind your building, and then you have other large apartment buildings, so that you're sort of hemmed in. And I think if you could explain that context, that would be helpful.
Yeah, correct. Our donut, I don't know, Richard, if you can get up to the site plan. I think you just passed it. Our donut is pretty tiny in this case because the building to the right, as you said, wraps all the way around. And then we have the building to the left, and next to that is a large apartment building to the rear of the neighbor, and just a few other row houses behind. So we don't really have much context, and certainly not consistent context. We obviously are not happy with the hulking neighbor next door, but that's what we have to work with. So we decided to still stay with punched openings in a traditional brick facade.
And your new wall will be not as deep as the existing full height L, which will give you a little more rear yard in that space. And the grade change in your rear yard is not really relating to a contiguous green space in the back. So it
Correct.
I think doesn't affect the sense of green space. Okay. All right, commissioners, other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to ask you all to unmute so we can begin our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed. And again, we're not looking at the front facade. Those changes are still being reviewed at staff level and are not finalized. We will be looking at the rooftop bulkhead, the new rear extension, and the change in grade at the rear yard. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you like to start this one?
Sure. So concerned that the additions are overwhelming this very small early building. The bulkhead, I understand, is a winder, but the bulkhead could be sloped back to reduce its visibility. I guess it's probably as low as it can go, but that would help minimize its presence if it had a slope to it, like a more traditional stair bulkhead. At the rear, I'm curious to hear what other commissioners have to say, but I would be more comfortable in maintaining that existing rear wall and just bringing that across to the next door neighbor and maintaining those punched openings that are there. I think that some of the testimony talked about the hierarchy of the rear facade, and this is obviously sort of copying the same fenestration pattern on all three floors.
Having a graduated fenestration, graduated fenestration pattern going up.
Right.
Okay.
And I think the excavation, as long as they have proper protection and engineers on board while they're doing it, hopefully it'll be okay.
Okay,
so
and I will,
think
just to address that issue, of course, with 14 Gay Street, we had asked for extremely detailed structural drawings, as did Department of Buildings, and that was an instance where the contractor on his own did not follow those drawings. Right. And so that was the result of illegal work, not in compliance with our drawings. We would, of course, review this very carefully as well. And in fact, our own engineer has already reviewed this particular application and has been working with the applicant so that this overall scope, which is fairly typical, can be executed safely.
And I know that the fork at the front is not part of our review, but I would hope that a more appropriate color could be found than black everywhere.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, obviously it's always good if you can reduce the visibility with bulkhead a little bit, and slanting it might be a good idea if that's possible. But as far as the rear, I actually think it's perfectly appropriate, just because the context is so, when you look at that slide 16, I think it is, the context is so, no, there's no kind of consistent character there. So I feel that this design is okay on its own, and because there's nothing really to relate it to, I think it's okay as it is. I don't have any problem with it. And the excavation, I agree, just is also appropriate, and as long as it follows the rules and is not performed illegally, it should be fine, I'm sure, with working with the staff.
Okay. Great. And I do wish the applicant had included an aerial photo of this block, because it does really show how this rear facade is cut off from. So not only isn't there a consistent context, but it's even cut off from this very varied varied context. Okay, Commissioner Goldblum.
I apologize. I had to take an emergency call there, but I think I caught most of it, and I think it looks appropriate to me. It's a very small house. The bulkhead is relatively tight. I think the applicant could work with staff to, I think that the run of stairs that goes up to the attic, they were talking about the winders. I mean, I think that on the very top floor, you might be able to take those stairs straight up to the roof, and it would cause a low spot in the bedroom below, but it would push the bulkhead back a little bit and allow you to do the make it smaller. And they could also explore angling it, which would, I think, improve the visibility in the front. But I'm okay with it if they continue to work with staff on reducing visibility.
Okay, great. Thanks. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I agree with your comment earlier, which there's a context aerial photo to the backyard condition, given the nature. But I also hear what Anne was suggesting. She does have a good point, but given the limited visibility and the lack of context or pattern in the backyard area, I can leave it as is.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
I find the bulkhead could be reduced, and technically, I find the addition in the rear yard overwhelming, and I find the scale just too much for me. It could be reduced, and the excavation is fine.
Okay, and when you say reduce the scale, do you mean of the design or the bulk?
The bulk, it's what, 1, 2, 3 stories, could be
Okay.
2.
All right. There is already an existing full height addition, and this is going to replace that and be less deep than the
But
existing.
if you go back to the original rear elevation, I was looking at this. This goes up only 2 floors, doesn't it, or 3?
It goes all the way up. The white stucco box addition goes all the way up.
No, I'm talking about the brown portion that was added.
Yeah, the brown. So there's sort of 2 extensions on this building. There's the full height L, which is in white painted brick or stucco, and then there's a second addition that's this brown wood addition.
Okay, so we're dealing with the first white addition.
Yes.
Okay,
so,
I can accept. Then I can accept it. Okay.
Okay, and the new addition would not be as deep as the white addition.
Correct. But the window, it looks so monolithic. If there was a way that the 3rd floor could be redone, the color, something is off.
Okay, the sort of the hierarchy of the design or something.
Yes,
okay,
correct.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Okay, well, since we've got this slide up, I'll start with the rear. I'm actually okay with it as it is, and it's primarily because of the context that, there's really no, it's not part of a row. There's no, there's almost no donut. So the full height addition, I'm fine with. The excavation's fine. I am particularly disturbed by the bulkhead, though. Something's got to be done about that. It's very rare that we see on a building this small a bulkhead that huge. So there's got to be a lot of harder thinking that could go into this and reduce that size.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Shamir Baran.
I agree with a lot of Commissioner Holford Smith's comments, but I think I'm especially, I think it would be a good thing to reduce that bulkhead mass, and also to rethink the balcony and the large openings on the top floor at the rear.
Okay, all right. So I think we have some support with the conditions that they reduce the visibility of the bulkhead and restudy the fenestration pattern at the rear to restudy the scale and proportions of the fenestration at the rear. Maybe that's the way to put it. So why don't I go ahead and make a motion like that and see if I've got that right and where we come out. Okay. In the matter of docket number 12336, 232 West 10th Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District, a transitional federal Greek revival style row house built in 1832 with later Italianate alterations. This is an application to construct a rooftop and rear yard additions and excavate the rear yard. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features, that the bulkhead and railing will not be visible directly over the front facade, and if made less visible, would be incidental against taller buildings in the background, that the gray slate shingle cladding of the bulkhead will reference the materiality of sloped roofs and dormers often found on buildings of this age and style, although the blocky form is recognizable as a modern accretion. That the proposed work at the rear of the building will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that the demolition of the existing modern two-story clad rear extension will not eliminate a historic feature, that filling in the 1 bay wide gap between the historic rear L and the adjacent building will not overwhelm the volume of the existing house or eliminate the green space from the rear yard, and that the placement of the new rear wall will be consistent with the predominant depth of other rear additions found within the central green space. That the house is not part of a row, and the placement and design of the new rear facade will not disrupt a consistent row of rear facades. That the design of the reconstructed rear facade will feature simple punched openings and a materials palette that is typical of other row houses within the historic district. That the installation of balconies at the lower floors will not detract from the features of the rear facade or its relationship to the other houses in the buildings in the row or in the block, and will be consistent with railings found on other rear facades on the block, and that the excavation will be done in compliance with Department of Buildings regulations under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer or registered architect to protect the building's facades and the adjacent buildings. However, I recommend that the applicant work with staff to reduce the visibility of the rooftop bulkhead and to restudy the scale and proportions of the fenestration pattern at the rear facade. And I think that I got that. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved with the condition that you continue to work with the staff on those elements. And we'll now move to the next and final item.
Okay, and that is public hearing item number 5, LPC 22-09477, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1515, Lot 1, 1045 Park Avenue in the Park Avenue Historic District. This is a colonial revival style apartment building designed by Schwartz and Gross and built in 1922 to 23. And the application is to modify an existing rooftop addition, modify masonry openings, and install railings and a pergola.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Matthew, if you could unmute yourself, I will give control of the presentation to you. Great, please click on your screen. And now you have control of the presentation. You can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Matthew Cairo. I'm presenting on behalf of Arthur Chabon Architects and our client, the tenant shareholder at 1045 Park Avenue Penthouse. The project that we are proposing is some renovations and modifications to the penthouse apartment at 1045 Park Avenue. This is the existing condition. As you can see from the map, 1045 Park Avenue is squarely in the center of the Park Avenue Historic District. In order to understand the proposal that we're making here, I think I'm going to try very briefly to take you through the progress of the renovations that have already occurred at the penthouse apartment here since the building was built in 1922. These are the original tax photographs. As you can see, originally the penthouse was only marginally visible. Really, you only saw a portion of the fireplace chimneys. These are the flues serving the lower apartments, and a portion of the water tower. Over time, there were progressive alterations to the penthouse apartment. Now, originally, the penthouse was not an apartment. It was service quarters for building staff. And as we see from the original blueprints, which we managed to get a hold of, it was dormitory style living for staff in the building. At some point thereafter, we don't know exactly when, the building converted the staff quarters to two separate penthouse apartments. The northernmost and southernmost apartments were originally separate. The southernmost apartment in 1987, in 86 to 87, was given a second floor, so it became a two-story apartment. And then in the early 1990s, I believe it was 1995 actually, the two apartments were merged into a single two-story penthouse apartment. This is the current condition as seen from the area around East 86th Street and Park Avenue. You can see a small portion of the original penthouse below, and the bulk of the second floor of the penthouse above of the addition that was made in the middle 1990s. As you can see also, there is some limited visibility of the upper portion of the lower part of the penthouse. That would be the first floor of the penthouse, but primarily what's visible is the existing second floor extension that was made in 1995. And again, you can see the chimneys for both chimneys that were pre-existing for that serve wood burning fireplaces in the lower apartments, but do not serve this apartment in particular. This is an axonometric drawing that shows essentially what our proposal is, as it exists on the left and as we propose it is on the right. As you can see on the left, you have a slightly irregular structure on this second floor penthouse and a couple of protrusions on the lower level. We would be proposing to remove the lower level protrusions, a stair that currently exists at the back of the building, and a bay window, which will be visible on the next drawing, and to replace it with a build out on the corner of the second floor penthouse in order to regularize its front facade, the facade facing Park Avenue, recenter a fireplace chimney that is connected to a gas fireplace on the second floor, reconsideration of fenestration on the second floor in order to regularize it and bring it into conformity with the windows and doors on the main body of the building, and the addition of a pergola and convenience stairs on the outside of the building. This plan shows essentially what our proposal is. These would be the areas to be removed. These would be the areas to be added. This would be the convenience stair from the lower terrace of the roof to the terrace above the first floor of the penthouse. This is the existing roof. Currently, this is entirely given to service. We would be reclaiming that service area, placing the pergola there, and removing the old stair and adding a new stair encased in a glass and metal stair enclosure, and then building out the lower portion of the lower corner of the second floor of the penthouse in order to create a more consistent mass on the south portion of the second floor. This would be a secondary stair concealed largely as possible by the existing chimney, which would be access to a roof garden that we would be placing on the second floor, on the top of the second floor of the penthouse. We would add safety railings to match existing around both areas. Here, this is our north elevation. You see the existing and the proposed. All of the areas shaded on the existing are areas that we would be proposing to remove or alter. The areas on the left show the convenience stair, the added pergola, and behind you can see the railing for the second floor, the roof garden, the proposed roof garden on the second floor, and the new stair bulkhead from the first to the second floor. This is our east elevation. This shows the removal of the existing stair and replacement with a new stair enclosure here. And we would also be proposing to shore the existing fireplace on the south end of the building. Currently, the chimney itself, the upper portion of the chimney is covered with a wood trellis that's in a state of disrepair. We would remove that and replace it with a stucco chimney to match the lower portion of the existing chimney. This is the proposed south elevation, showing our consideration of the fenestration on the second floor. We would be removing the arched windows and creating a single rectangular door that would have a shape and proportion that's more consistent with the body of the building and the remainder of the penthouse. And then this is the west elevation showing the pergola that we would be proposing, the alterations to the second floor of the penthouse, including the railing and the moving of the chimney, and the refurbishment of the south facing chimney, and a small reconsideration of what is currently a 3-panel door. We would remove a PTAC unit in order to turn it into a 4-panel door facing into the dining room on the first floor of the penthouse. We would also be taking 2 existing windows and turning them into doors for access to a bedroom in order to, we hope, improve the rhythm of the west-facing facade. This is the facade facing Park Avenue. As far as colors go, our proposal would be to match existing colors as closely as possible. Right now, we've studied existing colors. The penthouse itself is currently covered in stucco. We would be proposing to cover to finish the exterior in stucco to match, with colors to match. Also the parapet coping is metal, and we would be proposing a color to match the existing. Again, these are our proposals would match the existing as close as possible. The change we would propose for the fenestration is that the existing windows and doors on the penthouse are currently painted white. We would be proposing to give them a bronze colored Kynar aluminum finish in order to better match the windows and doors on the body of the building below, on the block of the building below. The metal stair that we're proposing, the 2 metal stairs and the handrails would all be black to match the existing. And our pergola, when we originally proposed to the community board, we were considering a dark colored pergola. We received some concerns from the community during that meeting that that was too visible, and we took that on board and are instead proposing that we go for a color that is lighter and much closer to the color of the existing water tower in order to reduce the apparent bulk of the pergola and cause it to blend more into the background, we hope, and reduce its overall visibility from the street. Again, all of our windows and doors, including the proposed stair enclosure, would again be bronze Kynar aluminum to match the existing building. And here we have existing conditions photos, our computer renderings of the proposal, and then on the far right you'll see the mock-ups. And I believe that if you look at these, you'll see that the mock-ups bear out the work that we're proposing fairly well. This is from the view from 86th and Park Avenue on the southwest corner facing northeast. This is from 86th Street, about a quarter of the way down the block, facing along 86th Street toward the building. This is just a close-up showing the relative scale of the mock-up area, showing the railing on the second floor and the build-out of the corner, including the proposal for the pergola. This is from along Park Avenue facing north. Again, you can see the proposal is primarily one of fenestration, and the existing chimney on the south is visible, but we would be proposing refurbishment in order to hopefully reduce its visibility, as the weathered wood up there right now is very dark and is currently more visible than we would like it to be against the body of the proposed second floor of the penthouse. Again, this is just a close-up to indicate the proposal. Mock-up on the left, our proposed rendering on the right. This is from 85th Street facing north. This is from 86th Street facing towards Park Avenue. From this angle and points to the east, the building is largely concealed because of similar sized buildings and taller right next to it, where it shares a party wall with the building directly to the east. Again, existing on the left, rendered in the middle, and the photos of the mock-up from here that you can see that the mock-up is almost not visible. It was not possible for us to match the photograph exactly because of existing construction in the on that street, but you can see that a very slight movement in your feet, and the proposed renovation disappears almost entirely. This is from 88th Street facing south. Again, you can see that the pergola would be visible from here, as well as a small portion of the upper part of the convenience stair, but we don't believe that it appreciably adds to the existing bulk, because we have attempted to create a pergola with a color and a style, and also with spacing in the wood pieces to reduce its relative bulk along that vista as well as possible. And then this is directly across the street on 86th Street. You can see that neither the proposal nor the mock-up are visible from directly across the street to the building. The vantage point is very steep. The building itself is 150 feet tall, so you can see that it's only from very long vistas that small portions of the project become visible. We have some appendices here, but I think at this point would be very happy to answer any questions you might have.
That's great. Thank you. And if you need anything in the appendix to answer a question, that's fine. You can
certainly.
Then. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions at this time, so let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I will turn it over to Gregory to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We did not receive any signups in advance, but I see a couple of hands raised, so I'll go through them now. The first is Rachel Levy from Friends of Upper East Side. So Rachel, I'm promoting you to panelist now. And if you could just unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. The gradual yet haphazard accretion of rooftop structures is a familiar story at the penthouse levels of large apartment buildings on the Upper East Side. Friends Preservation Committee can appreciate the applicant's desire to restore some order and regularity where little exists. However, this is already a highly visible penthouse on a prominent corner, and we would like to see some efforts made to reduce its visual impact. We do not take issue with the modified masonry openings or modifications to bulk on the roof. Although we understand the intent to replicate the color of the window frames in the rest of the building, the bronze window frames call undue attention to themselves against the light-colored stucco facade of the penthouse. A more neutral color might blend in more to the stucco and maintain the clear differentiation between the penthouse structure and the rest of the building. Similarly, the dark railing on top of the second floor roof deck, as well as the wooden pergola, read from a distance as additional bulk. Friends questions whether these elements are truly necessary for this two-story penthouse, and if so, we advise that their appearance be minimized. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I saw that there was a hand raised by Lo Vandervalk. So yes, okay. I am going to promote you to panelist now, Lo, if you are ready. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the public record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lo Vandervalk. I'm representing the views of Carnegie Hill neighbors. we regretfully oppose several elements of this design. At the community board presentation, the changes were characterized as regularizing what is currently there, but we think the building goes beyond that. But also CB8 made it in its review, made their decision without benefit of the mock-ups or the axonometric drawings. We're concerned about the two new circular external stairs that appear to be visible from the public way. I'm not sure that, I don't think the mock-up showed the one facing 86th Street. And so but we do think it will be visible from, say, 85th Street. Also, the addition of the roof deck on above the 17th floor, we think it is adding to the already large addition made in 1995. Also, the pergola remains quite prominent, even though the color has been changed, and the new squared off window enframelments with their darker color makes the windows as viewed from one block or several blocks away more prominent than what is now there. Also, the typology of this rooftop addition defies what is mostly in Park Avenue, as the buildings were built with rooftop additions, such as a one-story penthouse that we see across the street at 1040 Park, the famous Condé Nast building, or the layered setbacks of a rooftop addition going up that consists of the same materials as the building itself. And this example defies both of those conventions and makes it much more prominent. Also, the intersection of these two broad avenues, 86th Street and Park Avenue, makes the visibility even more pronounced. And we hope that the Landmarks Commission can encourage the applicant to make some modifications to make this less apparent and more consistent with the avenue. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lo. And that does appear to be all of the hands that are raised for this application. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gregory. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Sure. I think that the main concern seems to fall into a couple of categories. The first is that a metal handrail is going to increase the apparent bulk of the building. And this is a rather apt rendering to bring us to, because I think that this bears out that the handrail itself, because it's made out of thin metal pieces, is going to read as somewhat transparent rather than as a net addition to the height of the building. It is visible, it is something that you will see, but it is something that you will read as largely transparent. And if you look at the existing photograph that shows the existing black handrail on the lower portion of the penthouse, that is the same sort of visibility you will have on the upper level as well. There's always a risk when doing a computer rendering of this kind that it wants to make things look considerably more prominent than they will in real life. Now, we recognize that concern. I think that we take it on board, but I do think that the overall bulk will not be appreciably increased by a handrail. It will read largely as transparent. Likewise, if I could move to if there are other, we actually have done some more extensive studies of the street wall and also visibility down 86th Street. I will move to show you some of those in our appendix. We are sensitive to the the idea that the penthouse itself is somewhat visible along the street. However, the portions that are visible only really become visible at real extremities of the street, and what's visible is already there. So you can first see the penthouse, for example, at almost at the park, but you are only seeing the very edge of the existing second floor of the penthouse at that vantage point. As you move closer, you see again the existing penthouse and the existing chimney, but from this vantage point with our alterations, the chimney would be moved more to the north, so we would actually be reducing its net bulk along 86th Street. And from closer up the street, from about halfway up between 86th and Madison, is the first point at which you would see the entirety of the existing penthouse, the existing second floor of the penthouse. We would be squaring that off, regularizing it again, as we've said, and that would really be the first point at which you would see the proposed build out of the second floor and the revised chimney. And also, if you look at the portion of the first floor where there's currently a build out on that building, that little build out would be removed according to our proposal in order to reduce the visibility of the lower portion of the penthouse from this vantage point. And so really it's only when you're at about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way down East 86 towards Madison Avenue that the entirety of the second floor of the penthouse becomes visible. But from this point of view, the entirety of the second floor of the penthouse is already visible. And I think that what we're doing is improving its visibility overall by giving it a center line that corresponds more to the center of the building. And also what we've tried to do is, again, create a mass on the top of the building that is more consistent with the massing below. We definitely we want to be good neighbors, of course, and we want to take on board the concerns from the neighbors. And I think that this shows to some extent that the way in which we've attempted to address that.
Okay.
As far as colors of the windows and doors are concerned, as you can see, replacing the windows and doors is really a high priority for us. If there are concerns about that are ongoing about the visibility of the windows and doors, we would be happy to hear it. But the windows and doors do definitely need to be replaced, and I hope that does not represent a concern about the fenestration overall, because as you can see, the flashing in some of the windows and doors are already failing. So replacement of those is a major concern on our part.
Okay. And I think the comment was about the finish of them.
Okay. I understand.
Okay. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, I don't see any final questions, so we're going to move to our discussion. Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed, and we'll now begin our discussion on this proposal, which is to make modifications to an existing penthouse by squaring off some of the massing, changing the fenestration pattern to a more rectangular pattern, and installing railings and a pergola. So let's begin that discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I generally think that this is appropriate. I think that the applicant can work with staff to set the trellis and the railing for the upper level back by the maximum amount feasible.
Okay. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with Michael. The railing should be make as recessed as much as possible.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree. I think the railing, the pergola, and the stairs need to be reevaluated. And if you go to page 27, you could see on the right-hand side, the pergola, it's I think that's the pergola needs to be pushed back somewhat. The pergola has to be reduced in size.
Okay, Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, typically we would be looking at the rooftop of this building and we'd be saying we don't really want to see terribly much of anything, but with the existing condition, we're sort of in a very different position than we would ordinarily be in. That said, I am with Commissioner Jefferson. We can't forgive the railing, the pergola, and the stairs. There has to be some effort, and that can be done with staff, but there has to be some effort to set those back, reduce sizes.
Okay, Commissioner Shamir Barron.
Yes, for the most part, there's a lot up there, and as the applicant has stated, most of what we're seeing is what already exists. I mean, I think that's obvious to everyone. I do absolutely think that they can work with staff in order to make the slight modifications and or set back slightly some new railing visibility. But otherwise, I think this is appropriate and actually is a good thing to kind of clean up there. There seems to be a lot of damage and worn out fabric. So I think that this is a positive and appropriate application.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith.
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments already been said. I think given the existing context, it's appropriate and probably will improve the appearance, but working with staff, not only I think to reduce the visibility of the railings, but I think the color. We haven't talked about the color of the railing, which looks to be black or very, very dark. And that stands in stark contrast to the light stucco. And I think the same thing can be said of the bronze windows. I understand they want to match the windows on the base of the building below, but I think they should be a lighter color so that the penthouse all sort of reads as a sort of a light tan, sort of whole composition.
I agree.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree that in general, this is okay because it is pretty similar in size to the existing accretions that are on the rooftop. And I agree with the comments by the last two commissioners about the color.
Okay. All right, so I think we can make a motion to approve this application with the condition that they work with the staff to set the pergola railing and back further to reduce the visibility, to study the visibility of the stairs, and to restudy the color of the railings and fenestration also to help minimize the visibility. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you be comfortable making that motion? Reducing the visibility of the pergola, the stair, the railings, and restudying the color of the fenestration and the railings. I think that's simpler.
Shall I do it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Regarding 1045 Park Avenue, the Park Avenue Historic District, the application is to modify an existing rooftop addition, modify masonry openings and install railings and a pergola. I know that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Park Avenue Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features, that the bulkhead and railing will not be visible from directly over the front facade, and will be visible over the side facade through a gap in the street wall and from other incidental views from the west against taller buildings in the background. But the gray slate shingle cladding of the bulkhead. Ooh, this is the wrong one. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I read the wrong one. Let's start this again. So, regarding 1045 Park Avenue, the Park Avenue Historic District, a colonial revival style apartment building. Oops, sorry.
So none of us noticed.
Yeah, well, it's late. I'm glad I beat you. So, a colonial revival building designed by Schwartz and Gross, built in 1922-23. Applications to modify an existing rooftop addition, modify masonry openings, and install railings and a pergola. Not surprising. Staff, I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Park Avenue Historic District. I recommend approval of modifications, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features. That the presence of the visible rooftop addition is a typical feature for large apartment buildings in this historic district. that the enlargement is modest in scale and that the new walls will align with and match the stucco finish of the existing rooftop addition. Therefore, the work will not overwhelm the massing or character of this large apartment building. That the glass and metal stair enclosure will be simply designed and set back, helping it to remain a secondary background element. That the existing windows at the rooftop addition do not presently match the configuration or align with fenestration of the building below, and the relocation and enlargement of the masonry openings and installation of multi-light metal windows and doors will not diminish the relationship of the rooftop addition to the building's overall fenestration pattern. That the proposed new and modified window openings of the rooftop addition are typical of punched openings found at rooftop additions within the district in terms of their size and shape. That the chimneys will be extended only to the minimum height to meet safety regulations and feature materials and finishes that are typical of these utilitarian accretions found throughout the district. That the proposed pergola will be simply designed and have neutral finish, helping it to remain a discrete presence of the roof. That the presence of stairs, pergolas, and railings will be in keeping with other visible rooftop elements found at other buildings throughout the historic district. That the proposed work will only be visible at a distance from select vantage points on East 86th and Park Avenue, and will be seen in the context of other rooftop accretions at taller adjacent buildings, and that the work will not diminish the special character of the building or historic district. However, the applicant should work with the staff to reduce the visibility of the railing and pergola, and to explore the colors of the railing, pergola, and windows to minimize visibility and noticeability.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved with those modifications. Please continue to work with the staff. And that concludes our public hearing and public meeting today, November 22nd, 2022. So thank you all. Thanks to the public who participated, and thanks to you commissioners, as always, for your hard work. And we will not see you next week, and we'll see you again on December 6th. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You all.